So anyway, a while back I was talking about Back to the Future a lot. I talked about the speed is 88, and then the gas for time travel is plutonium. Plutonium is actually plutonium 239. Interesting because this year is the 239th year of the United States. Lots of other stuff with that, but I also talked about the power, 121 gigawatts. I mentioned that Revelation adds up to 121. It's also the 12 and the 21 put together. Interesting because 2-1 is literally on the Julian calendar is the same as Valentine's Day. 2-1, there's also 333 days left until the end of the year. And I've talked a lot about Philadelphia and how Philadelphia on October 27th this year, the last day of Back to the Future in 1985, where the train destroys the time machine and then Doc Brown comes back in the train. Philadelphia this year on that day became 333 years old. It's also 33 days before the 333rd day of the year this year. But then I mentioned flux capacitor and I couldn't figure it out. Whatever, flux capacitor adds up to 149. And I'm just throwing this out here because if skull and bones adds up to 149, flux capacitor equals 149, it almost seems like all of this ties back into like the Satan worship and whatever, and it's how they kind of do their spells or whatever. So like maybe their magic or whatever is what makes all of these things happen. And the reason I mention that is just from a lot of films, and just the number 88 is tied in with Satanism, it seems like a ton of times. Even the new Paranormal Activity movie was all about 1988 and opening up a time warp or whatever. It's literally a movie to check out because what happens in this movie is they have this guy finds these old films from the year 1988 and he starts watching them, and literally there's these two girls that are working with these Satanist people, and they say things on the video that actually coincide with his life at that time. Like his daughter sneezes in the year 2013 and the girl on the video says bless you, almost like they knew what was going on. Like it's a crazy movie. I mean, it's just interesting that it all has to do with 1988, and there's lots of examples. I'm not going to go through and list them all. Um, and I know that the 8 represents the infinity, and also like the Ouroboros or whatever, the snake eating its tail. There's tons of other references to it. It just seems like I notice it a lot with Satanism. You even had this thing here from last year, Satanists to hold whatever the Black Mass in Oklahoma, and they only sold 88 tickets. But anyway, I mean, that's kind of another topic. I wanted to stick to this 149 stuff, dealing with skull and bones and whatnot. Then, so literally, the skull and bones are in the synagogue of Satan, which adds up to 223. The Paris attack that happened on Friday the 13th adds up to 223. I talked about how it all coincides with Lupercalia, which begins on February 13th. That's 223. Another 223 is the train attack. The train attack that happened in France this year was on 8/21. And if you go to the date of the attack from the other day, it's literally a span of 2 months and 23 days. Interesting too, it's 84 days, which an interesting number. Obama's born on 8/4, and Jewish gematria, he even adds up to 84. The word Jesuit adds up to 84. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope. Also, one of the big things they kept mentioning over and over about this Paris thing was the band, the Eagles of Death Metal, and the Eagles of Death Metal even adds up to 84. They also kept calling it an American band, and I've talked a lot about the symbolism of the train wreck in Philadelphia and whatnot. Interesting, this song, We're an American Band, is by Grand Funk Railroad. It just stuck out to me. That was the first thing I thought of. Even talks about Omaha, Nebraska down here. I guess that's where they talk about this in the song, stopping to party with 4 groupies in Omaha, Nebraska. Interesting. Not only have I mentioned the Lincoln, Nebraska stuff over and over and over, quoting the Abraham Lincoln stuff. You know, Abraham Lincoln died at the age of 56 in the year 65 in Washington, D.C. That adds up to 56. Paris, France adds up to 56. ISIS adds up to 56. Even Ronda Rousey lost. Literally, Ronda Rousey adds up to 56. Even Don Vito died. I mean, interesting, Don Vito, look when he was born, in 1956. Literally the day of the Paris attacks. If you add up the date, it adds up to 59. I talked about how 59 and 56 are mirrored years this year. So 56 is 59 years ago, 59, 56 years ago. But Don Vito, age 59, he's even from, go figure, Pennsylvania. And if you watch my previous videos, I have talked a lot about the number 91 recently and how it's an elimination death type number. Vincent Roy Margera is his real name. He adds up to 91 even. Anyway, sorry to get off topic. There's just always so much information. So this Facebook post, it's from July or March or whatever, and they talk about ISIS kill list. It is from 2015. It's just interesting. And what the big deal was that Bellevue, Nebraska was on there. And I put in Bellevue, Nebraska and Gematria. And what do you think it added up to? 56. So who knows? Not saying anything's going to happen there. Just kind of interesting. I didn't go through every one of these and add them all up and whatnot, but I did go up until here, and I just got tired of doing it. But none of them added up to 56 except for Bellevue, Nebraska, up to there. So I should go through and figure all these other ones out. I mean, that would be very interesting if it's the only one, considering Paris, France equals 56 and ISIS equals 56. Interesting to point out, too, Offutt Air Force Base is in Bellevue, Nebraska, and that's where George Bush went on 9/11. I also talked about how I seen a UFO at 11 o'clock the night before in Beebeetown, Iowa, which who knows what it was. It, of course, is on 41 degrees north. Skull and Bones also adds up to 41. So anyway, another thing about Paris was Geraldo Rivera's daughter was there, and they made a big deal about that as well. And he cried and she cried on TV because he works for Fox News. For one, I'm not even going to do it up here, but he's 72 years old. His name adds up to 72. Of course, born on the 4th of July. But if you scroll down here, you find out he did a TV special in 1988 that exposed Satanism. You can go and watch this on YouTube. Interesting, though, you know, the year 1988 once again. And it says, he stated estimates are that there are over 1 million Satanists in the country. I mean, well, go figure. But I mean, it's all a joke because this guy is part of it. No doubt in my mind. I mean, so he got a job at Fox News now. Fox News adds up to 106, just like Friday the 13th. 10/6 is the same as 9/23 on the Julian calendar. We've talked a lot about Pope Francis going to the White House at 9/23 on 9:23 p.m. 9/23 has been foreshadowed in tons of stuff this year, leading up to it, whatever. But also, this interview here, when he finally got reunited with his daughter, look at the time there, 1:06 p.m. The little thing here is even Rivera's reunited. Rivera's reunited adds up to 188. That all goes back to the Philadelphia train wreck that was going 106 miles an hour, had the engine number 601. It crashed at 9:23 p.m. It also was number 188 is what the train was or whatever. So, that's very interesting because this train wreck happened on May 12th, and it says that he got her on today, 16/11 or 11/16. I talked about this day as well, how it has to do with Revelation, but who knows? I haven't even been home long enough to see anything in the news or whatever, how it all connects. But if you go from the Philadelphia train wreck to today, wouldn't you know, a span of 188 days. Another really strange thing to me is that I don't care what anybody thinks. I feel like somehow like, we are all connected. Everyone who can see this and whatnot, somehow this all connects to us. Like, somehow seeing these numbers or whatever, I don't know if it's like, if we're part of the spell or whatever's going on, part of the, however they're manipulating some of these numbers. Because I had an uncle that died on this day, this year, 5/12, and he died of cancer. I made a video on it about the Knights of Columbus, and I talked about my other uncle, who was the Knights of Columbus guy there. I didn't have a clue that either one of them were even in it. And my uncle quit drinking on 8/8 of 88 even, but he just had to go to Minnesota today to get like half his tongue removed because he has cancer as well. So it's just pretty interesting. My uncle would die, and then one of my other uncles, his brother, has to go and get surgery. I have no idea how he is or whatever right now, but it just sticks out to me a whole bunch. So who knows? Just the thought. I mean, it's just strange stuff. It's also a span of 26 weeks and 6 days. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope. Another interesting thing on that Paranormal Activity movies, in part 3, it's the only one where they go back to 1988, and that's where it's filmed or whatever. And the last date that they actually show you in the movie is September 23rd, 1988. Then they leave and they go to the lady's mom's house or the grandma's house, and she's actually a witch, part of like the midwives or whatever. And you assume the movie ends on September 24th, but they do go to like the midwife coven or whatever on 9/23 of 1988. And even look what it shows when you go to Putluck or whatever to watch the movie. This is how it starts before you even push play. It shows you 3/29/32, 239/923. I mean, crazy. So anyway, sorry getting way off topic, but Skull and Bones, the reason they formed was a debating thing between these two things over that season's Phi Beta Kappa Awards. And Phi Beta Kappa actually was founded at the College of William and Mary on December 5th, 1776. So, literally December 5th is 12/5. It's like the mirror of the Philadelphia train wreck, or it could even be written that way, 12/5 or 5/12. So, 1776, that'll also be the 239th anniversary this year of it, and it'll be on 12/5. So interesting, 12/5 on the Hebrew calendar is the 23rd of Kislev, or however you pronounce that. And literally, Kislev is the 9th month in the Hebrew calendar. So 12/5 this year, December 5th, will be 9/23 on the Hebrew calendar. So 9/23 as a date, and then also it'll be the 239th anniversary of the Phi Beta Kappa Society. Also interesting to point out, Phi Beta Kappa adds up to 106. Also, this doesn't necessarily have to do with much. I just found it interesting in regards to Philadelphia. The Septuagint that a lot of people go back to because it was the first translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek. So a lot of people go back and refer to this Bible, blah, blah, blah. But it actually was made by this guy, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, the guy who the capital of Jordan was named after until the year 106 AD. It also, it has to be Philadelphia of the United States. So, like I said, just wanted to point that out because it ties into Philadelphia. Haven't done that much more research into it. Just found it interesting because I had talked about that guy before and the number 106 in Philadelphia. Also, I've mentioned a lot about Lupercalia lately. Talked about the number 98 a lot with Lupercalia. Lupercalia is 98, Tom Brady 98, the former Michigan Wolverine 98, Jim Harbaugh, the new coach, 98. What I wanted to point out is Pennsylvania's mayor, I just found out, or Pennsylvania's governor, I just found out, his name is even Tom Wolf. Michael Anthony Nutter is the 98th mayor of Philadelphia. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to skip over this. I'm just going to end the video here. I'll make another video. I was going to talk about Charlie Sheen, but I just don't have enough time in 30 seconds. It doesn't necessarily even have to do with this video, except for maybe one part dealing with his brother in Minnesota again. So whatever. I'll make another part. Hopefully, before I go to bed tonight, have a good night.